Uh, Very good evening to all of you. Thank you to the Tirupur branch and Mr. Ramu, Chairman, Tulsiram Balaji, for giving me an opportunity to interact with the chartered accountants in the region of Tirupur. So, as told by Balaji sir, real estate is always having a lot of issues, be it starting from VAT or income tax or GST or even under the service tax. It was always a complicated subject. Part of the reason for that, we should not blame anybody else. We have to blame only the industry for that because the model in which that particular business is carried out, it is all based on various parameters like stamp duty regulations of different states. So accordingly, the business model will change. And we also know this sector is also prone for various other activities also. So that has also contributed because of certain malpractices done by very small segment of the people. The transaction gets complicated, and from the part of the government also, we don't see any intention to solve all these issues. See, for example, we all know the land value in a particular region. What is the actual value? We know, but the guideline values are kept at a very artificial level for obvious reasons. So actually, what is happening? The whatever is the land cost, that is get loaded into the construction cost. See, construction cost, even if you put the best material and everything, it may not go beyond 2000 per square feet or 2500 per square feet. But if you see that today construction agreements, the construction cost will be even 10,000 rupees or 15,000 rupees if you are buying an apartment in areas like Adayar or Annanagar in Chennai. So because the land value is also getting loaded into the construction value for various purposes to save on stamp duty, registration charges. So like that, the industry itself is very complicated in nature, and naturally any law made for the entire country on a uniform basis, it will definitely be not compatible with the regional practices. So that is the basic reason why this particular area is very complicated. So naturally, it has to be complicated. Otherwise, if everything is simple, we will not be able to meeting you today. So at least on that particular point, law has to be complicated always, as in our country. Now, this real estate transactions, the taxing the real estate sector is a very old story. Long back, that is, immediately after we got independence, the government was in need of lot of money. So because they have to take a lot of welfare measures, just now we have got independence. Our economy was spoiled by the around 300 years of the foreign rule. So every government wanted money. At that time, the major contributor of revenue to the government was sales tax. To some extent, excise duty was there on the manufacture, but sales tax was the main revenue generating factor of that particular time, 50s and 60s. So the state governments were looking to tax everything possible. They wanted to levy sales tax on hotels. They wanted to levy sales tax on clubs and associations. They wanted to levy sales tax on construction of buildings also. So Madras, the then Madras state was the pioneer one. They levied sales tax on construction activities. So when you are going and buying an apartment from a builder, it is a sale of immovable property. As a layman, we will understand that it is a sale of an immovable property. Sales tax can be levied only if it is sale of goods involved, movable goods involved. But in that particular construction activity, cement, steel, and all other materials are used, converted into an immovable property, and then transferred to the buyer. So, was there a sale in that particular activity? That was the question. It was agitated. And once there is a tax litigation in our country, either you should settle it at the inspector level or you have to settle it only at the superintendent level. So even if you get a favorable order in between, definitely the department will file appeal. So there are only two possibilities. Either the inspector should settle the dispute or the Supreme Court will settle the dispute. That is the practical part of it. So the issue reached up to tribunal and then up to Supreme Court. Supreme Court said you cannot levy sales tax on construction activities. So because there is no sale of goods involved, goods are not transferred as goods. They are converted into a building, immovable property, and sold. So you cannot levy sales tax. But government wanted revenue. Construction activity was happening with a great scale during that particular point of time. So they referred the issue to the law commission. So the Law Commission has studied the issue and they said we have to amend the constitution. We have to amend the definition of what is a tax on sale. And that is how this Article 366 29A has been introduced in the constitution. They brought a concept of deemed sale. Constructing a building is not a sale. My audio is proper. No, I'm getting some message that the internet bandwidth is slow and all that. My audio is clear?
Yes, sir. It's clear.
Okay, okay. You
For
can
me.
continue then. Okay. So, Article 366(29)(a) was introduced. A deemed sale concept was introduced. Even though constructing a building is not a sale, it is deemed as a sale. So, the Parliament has the power to deem anything as anything. So, they deemed there is an element of tax. So, from that time onwards, that amendment came somewhere in 1982 or 83. From that time onwards, VAT became liable on all construction activities. As we know, the construction also involves a service element. If you have to construct a building, we have to give it to a contractor. He will buy all the material, he will put his labor also. So there is an element of service also involved, and service tax can also be levied on that. As we all know, our government started levying service tax very late. It all started only from 1994 in a small way with the three services. Every year they keep on including more and more services. So construction was also levied to service tax in the year 2004. For the first time, they brought only the commercial construction, that is commercial construction of a mandap or a shopping mall. Commercial buildings was made liable to service tax from 2004. Next year, 2005, even residential apartments were also covered. That is more than 12 apartments. In a complex, if there are more than 12 apartments, that was made liable to service tax. We all know construction involves both material as well as service. For the material part, state government is empowered to levy sales tax, and for the service part, the central government is empowered. Nobody can encroach into others' area. This is clearly demarcated in our constitution. So now, how to arrive at the value of the service component in a construction activity? The government gave one exemption notification. We call it as abatement. They said out of the total contract value, 66% is treated, 67% rather, is treated as the material value that is exempted from service tax, and remaining 33% service tax was payable. At that time, the service tax rate was somewhere around 10 or 12%. On 33%, it will be some 4%. The 4% was the effective service tax levy. People started complying with that. Slowly, it was going up. Then, in 2007, 1st June 2007 budget, at that time, Mr. Balaji was referring to Chidambaram in connection with my name. And even in 2007, Mr. Chidambaram was the finance minister. And he introduced a new service called works contract. If you read the budget speech of 2007, he will say that the state governments are levying VAT on construction activities. The central government should levy service tax on construction activities. So I am proposing to levy service tax on works contract. So if you read the budget speech, for the first time, service tax came to be introduced on construction activities only from 1/6/2007. But already there are services from 2004 construction service commercial, from 2005 residential. So this has created this particular definition of the work contract service coupled with the budget speech that has led to further lot of confusion. So what has happened? People started analyzing what could have been the reason why this is like that, and finally all this litigation, as I said once again, it reached up to Supreme Court in L&T. See what they did: goods portion, central government cannot levy the tax. Central government has got no authority to levy any tax on the goods part of it. How they excluded the goods part of it under construction service? They gave an exemption notification. 67% they exempted. See, you can exempt something, first of all, only when you have some power to levy. I have the power to levy, but in public interest, I am exempting it. When you don't have the power to levy any tax on the goods, what is the meaning of exemption notification? So that exemption notification has got no meaning because exemption notifications are not issued by the parliament. It is issued by the government. Today it may be there, tomorrow somebody may remove it. Let us assume that 67% notification is taken away, rescinded. Then what will happen? Entire construction total value will be liable to service tax. That is not possible. As per the constitution, on goods component, central government cannot levy taxes. So the validity of service tax on construction service was based on that exemption notification. Supreme Court said that is not correct. You cannot levy tax only with the help of the notification. It should stand on its legs by virtue of an act. So they stuck down the levy. They said whatever construction service started in 2004, residential 2005, all that will cover only pure services. All materials are supplied by me. I engage a labor contractor. That is liable from 2004 and 2005. But if it is a composite contract involving both material as well as service, it can be subjected to service tax only from 1/6/2007 under works contract service. This is the decision of Supreme Court, but that came after 10 years in 2015. So 2005 to 2015, 10 years, all confusions were there, lot of litigations were going on, and everything has been put to rest by the Supreme Court in 2015. So now it is very clear all construction activities which is composite in nature, that is involving material as well as the service element, it has to be taxed only with effect from 1/6/2007. So following that judgment, we have argued before the Chennai Tribunal in one of the cases. See, the department, this confusion is not only for the trade, not only for people like us, even the government is also confused a lot. In many places, they continue to issue show cause notice under construction service even after introduction of first contract service after 2007. So the Chennai bench of the tribunal has held even after 1/6/2007, construction activities can be taxed only under works contract service and not under construction service. So that is the position now. So after 2015 judgment, lot of clarity has come. So once I am in this PowerPoint mode, I am not able to see any chat has come or not. Maybe I have to close the screen share and go back. So as I said, as Mr. Balaji was mentioning in the beginning, anybody wants to interrupt me, ask any questions, you can just unmute yourself and raise the question. So let it be more of a interactive and not like a lecture. So please, you can unmute yourself. I think that option will be available. So you can interrupt me and put any questions in between. Now, then GST came with effect from 1st July 2017. That baby is now 3 years old. We are all struggling with the baby for the past 3 years. Like any newborn baby, it is also giving lot of problems to us for the past 3 years. And construction industry is not an exception. Here also, we have lot of issues to deal with. We all may be knowing, so under GST, the taxable event is supply of goods or services. Under excise, the taxable event was manufacture. Under service tax, it was service. Under VAT, it was sales. But under GST, the taxable event is unified and it is called as supply of goods or services or a combination of it, both. And on that single taxable event, both the government will levy the taxes simultaneously. So that is the unique feature of GST. Otherwise, what will happen? Earlier, service was with the central government, sales was with the state government. So everybody will be fighting with each other. State government will say, this is a sales activity, I will levy sales tax. And central government will say, no, it is a service activity, I will levy service tax. They will be fighting. But who is the sufferer? Assessee has to suffer. For example, if you take the software sector, whether software is goods or services, till now we don't know very clearly. So both the taxes are levied on software transactions. So all those problems have ended with the introduction of GST because the taxable event is the single one, that is supply. And we all know there is an interstate supply attracting IGST and intrastate supply CGST, SGST. These are all the basic things under GST before moving to specifics. Now, coming to the construction industry, works contract, we all know the term works contract, which was defined under all the laws, VAT law, service tax law, even under GST, there is a definition. So the construction of an immovable property, simply stated, construction of an immovable property is treated as a works contract. And there is a schedule 2 under the GST Act. Wherever there is any doubt whether a particular transaction is goods supply or service supply, schedule 2 gives an answer. They list down wherever there may be any confusion, they have clearly laid down which will be treated as supply of goods and which will be treated as supply of service. And construction activities are treated as supply of service. Otherwise, what will happen? Construction involves cement, which attract 28% tax. Steel is there, maybe 18%. service is involved. So lot of goods with different rate will apply. So if particular GST rate has to be applied, you call it as composite supply, which is predominant. All these confusions will come. To avoid that, works contract and construction activities are clearly laid down as service under Schedule 2 of the GST Act. As I said in the beginning, in different part of our country, we follow different model. In Tamil Nadu, if you have to buy an apartment or a commercial building, if you are having a land, we can engage a contractor for construction. That contractor may do the work either with all material, or we may supply all the material, he may do the labor. That is one part of it. Coming to the residential sector, suppose if I have a land, I want to construct a house, I can engage a contractor either with material or without material. If you move on to the apartment system, whenever we book any apartment in Tamil Nadu, initially an agreement will be entered, and subsequently the undivided share of the land will be registered in the buyer's name by a sale deed. The UDS land will be registered in favor of the buyer, and a construction agreement will be entered. So the UDS agreement will be, the sale date will be for immovable property, and the construction agreement will be a works contract. This is the model followed in Tamil Nadu. But if we go states like Maharashtra and further north, the situation is different. What they do, initially on booking, an agreement to sell will be entered, we'll be making the payment, and finally when the apartment is handed over, one single sale deed will be made for the entire value. There will be no breakup between land value and construction value. It will be a single sale deed on which stamp duty will be paid. So now what happened, when service tax was introduced, the Tamil Nadu model, where there is a works contract, will be liable to service tax. But the Bombay model, we will call it so, the Bombay model is a sale deed for the entire property. So that may not be liable to service tax. This has created an anomaly, which they tried to rectify in 2010 by making some amendment. But now under GST law, they have made it very clear, both type of activities are covered under the Schedule 2. Under Schedule 2, it is treated as a service. Coming to that second model, whenever any money is received from the buyer, before obtaining completion certificate for the project, then it is treated as a service. Suppose there is an apartment, it is completed, and local authority have also issued the completion certificate. Still, lot of flats are vacant. That is the situation today. In all the apartment complexes which are under construction and completed, more than 50% of the units are lying vacant because of the recession and further complicated by the COVID-19 situation. Lot of flats are vacant. So when we buy an apartment where the complex is already constructed and completion certificate issued, then it will be treated like a sale of immovable property and GST will not be attracted. So sale of flat after getting completion certificate will not be liable to any GST. In some places, completion certificate is not mandatory. In those places, the builder or whoever it is, the promoter, they have to get a completion certificate from a chartered engineer or an architect. So any sale after getting completion certificate will not be leviable to GST, and any sale before getting completion certificate, I get 1 lakh advance, and then I get another 5 lakhs. Then I get completion certificate. But that particular apartment, even the amounts received after completion certificate in respect of that particular apartment, that will continue to attract GST. But any sales made after issue of completion certificate, that will not be liable to GST. This is the position. Now,
sir,
yes, sir.
can I ask one?
Yeah.
சார் இப்போ பார்த்தீங்க சார், இப்போ நீங்க கம்ப்ளீஷன் சர்டிஃபிகேட் அப்படின்னு சொல்றீங்க, பட் சில பில்டர்ஸ் வந்து 2 அக்ரிமெண்ட் என்டர் பண்றாங்க. ஒன் ஃபார் சேல் ஆஃப் யூஎஸ் அன்டிவைடட் ஷேர் அண்ட் another ஃபார் கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் அக்ரிமெண்ட். ஈவன் தோ தி பிளாட் இஸ் கம்ப்ளீட்டட் அண்ட் தே ஆர் ஹேவிங் பொசஷன் ஆஃப் கம்ப்ளீஷன் சர்டிஃபிகேட், பட் பில்டர்ஸ் ஆர் என்டரிங் 2 அக்ரிமெண்ட்ஸ். யூஎஸ்டி சேல் பண்றதுக்கு ஒன்றும் கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் அக்ரிமெண்ட்டும் போடுறாங்க. போட்டு தான் வந்து இப்பவும் பிளாட்ஸ் வந்து இது பண்றாங்க. அப்போ ஜிஎஸ்டி வருமா?
ரொம்ப நல்ல கேள்வி. இது வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னா உலகத்திலே இருக்கிற ஒரு பெரிய காமெடி என்னன்னு கேட்டீங்கன்னா இதுதான். முடிஞ்சு போய் ரெடியா இருக்கிற பில்டிங்ல போய் இப்ப நம்ம பிளாட் வாங்கினாலும் we will be entering into a construction agreement. ஆல்ரெடி கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்டட், அதுக்கு ஒரு கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் அக்ரிமெண்ட். இதுதான் இன்னைக்கு இண்டஸ்ட்ரியில இருக்கிற பிராக்டிஸ். அதுக்கு என்ன காரணம்னாக்க, சேல் டீடு போட்டா 11% ஸ்டாம்ப் டியூட்டி, கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் அக்ரிமெண்ட்டுக்கு 2%. அதுவும் இல்லாம இருந்தது. இந்த மாதிரி எல்லாரும் போடுறாங்க அப்படின்னு சொல்றதுனால they levied a nominal 2%. This is what I initially also I told. See, if the government wanted to stop this practice, what they should have done, for completed apartments, you should not do the documentation like that. You have to pay stamp duty on the whole amount. That way they should have amended the law. But for various reasons, which we will not get into, they are still continuing and they are still sanctifying it. இப்போ ரீசெண்டா ஒரு 1 month முன்னாடி பாத்தீங்கன்னா டிஜி ரெஜிஸ்ட்ரேஷன்ல இருந்து ஒரு சர்டிபிகேஷன் வந்திருக்கு. அவங்க ஏதாவது டவுட் தான் கேட்டாங்க. கம்ப்ளீட் ஆகி கம்ப்ளீஷன் சர்டிபிகேட் இஷ்யூ ஆன பில்டிங்கெல்லாம் வெதர் ஸ்டில் கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் அக்ரிமெண்ட் போட்டு சேல் பண்ண முடியுமா அப்படின்னு கிளாரிஃபை பண்ணும்போது ஒன்னும் பிரச்சனை இல்லை, பண்ணலாம்னு சொல்லி ஒரு கிளாரிபிகேஷன் வந்திருக்கு. We all know what is the reason behind that, so we will not get into that. So entering into agreement முடிஞ்சு போன பில்டிங்குக்கும் இன்னைக்கு கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் அக்ரிமெண்ட் போட்டு தான் வித்துக்கிட்டு இருக்காங்க. That is the practice which is also backed by the clarification given by the state government. But just because அந்த மாதிரி கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் அக்ரிமெண்ட் போட்டு அதை விற்கிறதுனால ஜிஎஸ்டி ஆட்டோமேட்டிக்கா வந்துடாது. What the GST law says, it doesn't talk about the mode of documentation. Once completion certificate is issued, that is final. That has to be accepted. All credit, all respect should be given to the construction agreement, even though completion certificate. So completion certificate once வந்துருச்சுன்னு சொன்னா அதுக்கப்புறம் விற்கக்கூடிய எந்த பிளாட்டுக்கும் ஜிஎஸ்டி கண்டிப்பா வராது. ஈவன் தோ த அக்ரிமெண்ட் மாடல் சேல் டீட் பிளஸ் கன்ஸ்ட்ரக்ஷன் அக்ரிமெண்ட் போட்டாலும் அதுக்கு ஜிஎஸ்டி வராது கண்டிப்பா. அதுக்கு நீங்க இந்த இதையும் எடுத்துக்கலாம், அந்த ஸ்டேட் கவர்மெண்ட்ல இஷ்யூ பண்ணிருக்கிற கிளாரிபிகேஷனையும் we can refer. State government is permitting that type of documentation even for CC issued project. But under GST law, what is relevant is whether completion certificate is issued or not. Or if completion certificate is not required in a particular area, first occupation. நம்மளே ஒரு சர்டிபிகேட் வாங்கி வச்சுக்கலாம். அப்படி இல்லைன்னா ஒரு 20 வீடு இருக்கு அந்த ப்ராஜெக்ட்லன்னா யாராவது ஒருத்தர் கிரகப்பிரவேசம் பண்ணிட்டு உள்ள வந்து குடியிருந்தாருன்னா போதும். That will be treated as completion. Any sales after first occupation will not be liable to GST. This is very clear. Shall I proceed, sir? Okay. Now,
sir.
இப்போ நம்ம டைம் சொல்லும்போது பிஃபோர் கிரைஸ்ட் ஆஃப்டர் கிரைஸ்ட் பிசி ஏசின்னு சொல்ற மாதிரி when we discuss about the GST on construction industry, before 1/4/2019 and after 1/4/2019 வந்து it is a very very important point, because 1/4/2019 is a very important date as far as GST on residential real estate is concerned. So before 1/4/2019, the issue was fairly simple. The GST rate was 12%. We all used to call it as 12%, but when you search for 12%, we will not find it. Actually, there is no 12%, it is 18%. On the total value, 1/3 will be treated towards the land value. On the remaining 2/3, it will be 18%. So effectively, it will come to 12% on whole value. Otherwise, the rate is 18% on 2/3 value. 1/3 வேல்யூ லேண்டுக்காக மைனஸ் பண்ணிடலாம். ஸோ நான் என்னுடைய ஏரியாவில் லேண்ட் வேல்யூ 1/3 விட கம்மியா இருக்கு ஆர் 1/3 விட ஜாஸ்தியா இருக்கு. சிட்டியினுடைய ஹார்ட் ஆஃப் த சிட்டியில் ஐ எம் பையிங் அன் அபார்ட்மெண்ட் வேர் த லேண்ட் வேல்யூ இஸ் 50% ஆஃப் த டோட்டல் பிரைஸ். பட் ஃபார் ஜிஎஸ்டி பர்பஸ், வெதர் ஆக்சுவல் லேண்ட் வேல்யூ ஆர் த கைட்லைன் வேல்யூ above 1/3 or below 1/3, that is totally immaterial. Uniform deduction 1/3 is allowed for land value. Remaining 2/3, 18%. This was the rate. The same rate for commercial building also. Commercial building, there were certain housing projects like the Pradhan Mantri schemes and slum rehabilitation, like that there are certain schemes. For that a lesser rate will apply, 12% on 2/3 of the value, which will come to 8%. So 1/3 is given as a deduction. ITC is eligible. ITC is eligible. In all other cases, it will be 18%. For example, I have my land. I engage a contractor. The contractor is doing with material. Then the contractor has to pay me 18%. I'm a promoter. I am constructing an apartment. I have subcontracted the entire work to another contractor. So he has to charge 18%. He can take ITC. I can also take ITC. On my buyers, I am liable to pay 12% on the whole amount or 18% on the 2/3. It is all very simple. So it could have been, since ITC is eligible, the cost also will come down. Everything was proper. But the industry, they were facing lot of problems at that particular point of time. There were a lot of unsold inventory. Recession was there. They all represented to the government that the GST rate has to be reduced. So they all made a representation. The government has also formed a committee to study this particular aspect. And finally, they came out with lot of amendments with effect from 1/4/2019. So now the industry is wondering why at all we went. We could have very well continued with the old scheme. The new scheme is more painful than any other schemes. You will understand, and perhaps you may be aware also. This whatever changes that have been introduced from 1/4/2019 are too complicated for any ordinary businessman to understand and implement. Even if he takes the help of an expert, if you have two experts, you will have five views. So like that, the provisions have been framed and we will see now. Now, after 1/4/2019, the rate was for affordable residential apartment. They have defined what is an affordable residential apartment. We will see that also. You should note these abbreviations. REP is real estate project and RREP is residential real estate project. So RREP means either it should be purely a residential project or some amount of commercial may also be there, which should not exceed 15% of the total area. Suppose the total project area is 1 lakh square feet, a complex. 15,000 square feet, there is a shopping is there, shopping complex and other commercial area is there. So if the commercial area in a project is less than 15% of the total area, still it will be treated as a residential real estate project. And wherever the commercial area is more than 15% or pure commercial project, it will be treated as a real estate project or REP. So now for the affordable residential apartment, the rate of GST is 1%. That is 1.5% on 2/3 of the value. 1/3 value deduction for land value on 2/3, 1.5%, which will come to 1%. For all other normal apartments, the rate is 7.5% on 2/3 value. 1/3 land value, 2/3 value, 7.5%, which will come to 5%. And in case of RREP, that 15% or below commercial, that is also treated as a residential. The same 5% will apply for that also. That is, in a residential real estate project where the commercial area, the commercial building area is less than 15% of the total area, even for the commercial area, this 5% rate will apply. But for other pure commercial project or where the commercial area is more than 15%, the rate will be like in the earlier regime, 12%. That is 18% on 2/3 value, which will come to 12%. So all these rates will apply when the particular apartment or the commercial area is sold along with the land. Along with the land. That is a condition. So only when between the promoter and the buyer, where there is an element of transfer of land also, this particular rate structure will apply. This point you have to note very carefully, which will be referred subsequently. This will become more important later. And this is the definition for affordable residential apartment. A residential apartment in a project, you can straight away come to the underlined portion, having carpet area not exceeding 60 square meter in metropolitan cities or 19 square meter in other than metropolitan areas. So one condition is the area should be less than 60 square meter in case of metros or less than 90 square meter in case of all other areas. That is one condition. The second condition, the total price charged should be less than 45 lakh. Total price, EB deposit, corpus fund, everything put together, it should be less than 45 lakhs. So these are the two conditions. If it is satisfied, it will become an affordable residential apartment. 1% rate will apply. Otherwise, it is a normal apartment. 5% rate will apply. Now, when these rates were introduced with effect from 1/4/2019, there were a lot of projects under construction. Already they were paying GST at the old rate, 12%, 18% on 2/3 value they are paying. Now all of a sudden from 1/4/2019, the rates have changed. So what will happen to the ongoing projects? So for the ongoing project, option was given. Either they can continue under the old scheme, they can continue to pay 12% and take ITC, or they can switch over to the new scheme of 5%. See, it is very easy to say it in the notification, but look at it from the point of view of a promoter. Suppose I'm a promoter, I want to continue under 12%. There is my another promoter who is also doing a project, he opted for 5%. Nowadays, the common people know more GST than any of us. So whenever you go to market, you can find people will be arguing, and common people, film stars, directors, they all know GST more than any chartered accountant or advocates nowadays. So people are awareness is there. They will say the other person is charging 5%. Why are you charging 12%? So it becomes a problem for a builder to choose a particular option because that will affect him commercially. But as per law, for all ongoing project, that option has been given. Either you can continue under the old scheme, take ITC and pay 12%, or switch over to the new scheme and pay under 5%. That particular option has to be exercised on or before 20th May 2019. They have to file that option before 20th May. If no option is filed, it will be deemed that they are opting for the new rate, 5% rate. Now, for any new project starting after 1/4/2019, there is no option. Compulsorily, they have to go under the 5% scheme or 1% scheme only for new project. Only for ongoing project, this option has been given. So now the next question is, what is an ongoing project? There is a definition. See, people may say, on 30th March, I launched a project. I conducted a Bhumi Puja. Is it an ongoing project? No. So ongoing project is also defined in the notification, which says the commencement certificate from proper authority should have been issued before 31st March 2019. So commencement certificate from the local authority should have been issued. So if there is no requirement under that particular area, then we have to get a certificate from a chartered engineer that the project has commenced. And completion certificate should not have been issued. Completion certificate should not have been issued up to 31/3/2019. Third condition is at least one apartment in the complex should have been sold, some money should have been received, and GST at the old rate should have been paid. Suppose I launched the project, I got commencement certificate, completion is not yet over, but I have not sold any apartment. Still, it will be treated only as a new project. So at least one sale, minimum sale, one sale should have happened before 1/4/2019. And commencement of construction, what does it mean? That is also defined. They say earthwork for site preparation for the project has been completed and excavation for foundation has started. So this is the definition for what does it mean for commencement. Commencement means the earthwork should have been completed and foundation work should have started. So then only it will be treated as an ongoing project and they have an option. They can choose between any of these options. Now, this rate has come with lot of conditions. Lot of conditions are attached to this particular 5% rate. The first condition is that GST has to be paid only in cash. No ITC is eligible. A builder who is paying under 5% is not eligible to take any input tax credit. They cannot take any input tax credit. Let us assume that the builder is not taking any credit, but the builder is also having some other business. He is also having a textile mill. He is also having another business, and registration is a common registration. He is having an input tax credit in the other business. All business covered under one single registration. I'm not taking any ITC for the construction activity, but I have a lot of ITC balance. Maybe he is having a CETP where there is a lot of accumulation of credit. Can I use that credit for paying my construction activity? No. The 5% GST or 1% GST has to be paid only through cash. Input tax credit also cannot be claimed. And whenever for an ongoing project, if somebody wants to switch over to the new rate by exercising that option, they have to reverse the credit. Whatever ITC they have taken so far, there is a formula for that particular purpose, and based on that formula, the credit has to be quantified and ineligible portion has to be reversed. So there is a very detailed formula. In fact, we should congratulate whoever was thought about this particular formula in the board. At least you need an IIT mathematics professor to understand this formula and apply it. So in fact, as many of you and Tulasiram may be knowing, I'm used to write a lot of articles on this subject. When all these notifications came, all this came on 29/3/2019. When we were reading, in fact, I was about to go mad. We were not able to understand anything, reading for 4 or 5 days, and only after some 1 week we were able to, and this would have been the position with many of you also. So only after some 7 to 10 days we were able to understand what is the intention, how, what is that they have made and all that. Then I wanted to write an article to explain. I started. It was going 10 pages, 15 pages, 20 pages, 30 pages. And that was the time I thought, why we should not write a book on this particular aspect. So I suddenly got an idea of writing a book, and within next another 20 days, I came out with a book with around 304 or 400 pages. And that much is the complicated, for that is what the point which I am trying to make. So all these notifications are very, very complex to understand. So we will try to understand now. One of the condition is, if somebody is paying under 5%, they have to procure the cement only from registered dealers. They should not purchase cement from unregistered dealers. If they purchase cement from unregistered dealer, then they have to pay GST under RCM. Cement 28% is the GST rate. So if any builder who is paying tax at the rate of 5% is buying cement from an unregistered buyer dealer, then 28% GST to be paid under RCM by the builder. Reverse charge mechanism, the builder has to pay. He cannot take ITC also, because under 5% there is no GST. And if he purchases any capital goods, any machinery for this particular project, then also he has to purchase it only from registered person. If he purchases from any unregistered person, any capital goods, then whatever is the GST on that capital goods, he has to pay under RCM. Whatever is the rate applicable, he has to pay under RCM, and no credit is eligible. So cement he should not purchase from unregistered person. Capital goods he should not purchase from unregistered person. In addition to that, in each of the project, they will be purchasing lot of inputs. They will be receiving lot of input services. Inputs like cement, steel, sand, fittings, all those items will be required for the project. Similarly, lot of services will be received. Engineers, architects, labor contractors, masonry, lot of services will be received. So the total expenditure incurred for each of the project, 80% of that particular expenditure should have been payments made to, should be from registered persons. So we have to maintain project wise accounts. We have to prove to the department every year whatever expenditure I am incurring in this particular project towards purchase of inputs and input services, at least 80% should be procured only from registered person. So we have to maintain project wise accounts, and every year this requirement should be satisfied. They should have made it as a project wise, because construction project will go on for minimum 3 to 5 years. So this 80% criteria, it would have been better if it is project wise. Entire 3 years, 5 years, I total up and ensure 80%. But this is year wise. Every financial year, 80% of our purchases should be from registered persons only. If there is a shortfall, I have purchased only 70% from registered persons, balance 30% from unregistered persons. For that shortage of 10% value, I have to pay, that is the builder has to pay 18% GST, uniform 18%. The rate is common, 18% GST under RCM. So if there is any shortage of procurement below 80% from registered person, for that shortage, the builder or promoter, I'm using the word builder, promoter interchangeably. There is no difference between all these words. I'm using it for the same meaning. So the builder has to pay 18% GST on the shortage. This is one condition. Another condition mentioned in the notification is, if it is a joint venture project, whatever flats are given to the landowner, he has to pay GST. They need not say this. Even otherwise, joint ventures are liable to, even from service tax period, GST or service tax is payable. We are going to see what is a joint venture, how the GST liability and all, we'll be seeing it later. So GST on joint venture also is liable to be paid. And always it is better for any ongoing project to take a completion certificate as on 31/3/2019. This will be very helpful for determining our ITC eligibility and all. So from an engineer, chartered engineer, a completion certificate should be obtained. What is the percentage of completion as on 31/3/2019? So that will be very important to do that ITC reversal. Now, these are all whatever conditions I have mentioned. These are all the conditions attached to that 5% rate. This 5% is again only for residential apartments. If it is an affordable residential apartment, it is 1%. For commercial buildings, it is 12%. That is 18% on the 2/3 value. Now, coming to that input tax credit eligibility, where and all ITC is eligible, where and all ITC is not eligible. We will see that. For commercial apartments sold before CC, completion certificate, we are going to pay GST for any commercial. See, I'm using the word commercial apartment. Normally, when we call it as an apartment, we understand only a residential apartment. But if you see the RERA provisions, the word apartment is common for both commercial as well as residential. So, in case of commercial apartments or commercial buildings, if it is sold before completion certificate, 12% GST is payable. So, to that extent, ITC is also eligible. But if the commercial apartments are sold after CC, at the time of getting CC, some portion of the commercial area is unsold. To that extent, ITC is not eligible. Why? Because we'll be selling it only after CC. When we sell it after CC, no GST. So, any commercial area sold before CC, ITC eligible. Sold after CC, ITC is not eligible. Next, coming to residential, in case of ongoing project, if somebody has opted to continue under the old rate, the 12% rate, he exercised option, then he can continue to take ITC. He can continue to take ITC. But if somebody has opted for 5% for a particular project, to that extent, ITC is not eligible. It has to be calculated as per the formula and reversed. The next question is, suppose I have some 4 or 5 projects. For some project, I will continue under the old rate. For some project, I will opt for 5%. Whether it is possible? It is possible. For each project, individually, option can be exercised. So, we have to distribute the credit project wise, and wherever we are paying under the old rate, we are eligible for ITC, and wherever we are switching over to the new scheme, new rate, ITC is not eligible. Now, even though I have opted to pay under the old rate, ITC is eligible. Once I get completion certificate for that particular project, if some apartments are not sold at that point of time, to that extent, ITC is not eligible. So, ongoing project is eligible. I can continue to take up to getting completion certificate. Once I get a completion certificate, if there are any unsold apartments, to that extent, ITC is not eligible. I have to calculate and reverse. So, this is the position as far as ITC is concerned. Now, this ITC reversal, before that, I'll come back to that. So this will help whatever we have discussed now. We can divide it like this: real estate project, commercial and residential. For commercial, sold before CC, ITC eligible. Unsold at the time of CC, ITC is not eligible. Residential, opted for new rate, opted for old rate. Ongoing project. If it is a new project, no option. It is only new rate. So new rate, ITC has to be reversed immediately. ITC has to be calculated and reversed. If you are continuing under the old rate, then again 2 subdivision. Sold before CC, credit is eligible. Sold after CC, credit is not eligible. This is the position. Now, once a builder is opting for the new rate, that is the 5% rate, he has to reverse the credit. He must have been taking ITC from the beginning under service tax period. Yes, sir.
ஒரு question, sir.
Yes,
சார், அந்த ஓல்ட் ரேட்ல வந்து பிஃபோர் கம்ப்ளீஷன் சர்டிஃபிகேட், ஆஃப்டர் கம்ப்ளீஷன் சர்டிஃபிகேட் சொன்னீங்க. நியூ ரேட்ல அது மாதிரி இல்லையா? பிஃபோர் கம்ப்ளீஷன், ஆஃப்டர் கம்ப்ளீஷன்
கிடையாது. அதுலயும் உண்டு சார். நியூ அதுல வந்து டிஃபரன்ஸே இல்ல. நியூ ப்ராஜெக்ட்னா நம்ம 5% தான் பே பண்ண போறோம். கிரெடிட்டே கிடையாது. அது பிஃபோர் சிசியா இருந்தா ஆஃப்டர் சிசியா இருந்தா ஆரம்பத்துல இருந்தே கிரெடிட் கிடையாது.
சரி சரி சரி,
புரியுது இல்லையா? பொங்கலே கிடையாது, அப்புறம் எங்க போகி அந்த மாதிரி.
சரிங்க.
So, அதனால நியூ ப்ராஜெக்ட், எனிவே அதை நான் சொல்லல. ரைட், தட் குட் தட் யூ ஹவ் பாயிண்டட் அவுட். If it is a new project starting after 1/4/2009, we don't have an option. We have to pay only 5%. 5% சொல்லும்போது கிரெடிட்டே கிடையாது. நம்ம ஆரம்பத்துல இருந்து எடுக்கவே முடியாது. அதனால அது பிஃபோர் சிசி வித்தாலும் கிரெடிட் கிடையாது, ஆஃப்டர் சிசி வித்தாலும் கிரெடிட் கிடையாது. பட் பிஃபோர் சிசி வித்தா ஜிஎஸ்டி உண்டு, 5% கட்டி ஆகணும், வித்தவுட் ஐடிசி. ஸோ ஐடிசி கிடையாது. ஸோ இதனால என்ன ஆச்சுன்னு சொன்னா, whatever GST paid on cement, steel, etc., all those things will become part of the cost. அல்டிமேட்டா அபார்ட்மெண்ட் விலை தான் ஏறும். பட் பையர்ஸ் எல்லாம் என்ன சொல்லுவாங்க, ஜிஎஸ்டி ரேட் எல்லாம் குறைஞ்சிருச்சு, 5%, பிரைஸ் மட்டும் நீங்க குறைக்க மாட்டேங்கிறீங்களே அப்படின்னு கம்ப்ளைண்ட் பண்ணுவாங்க. பட் த ரீசன் இஸ் when it was 12%, whatever GST on the raw material, whatever GST on the input services, everything is eligible for credit. அது காஸ்ட்ல போகாது. பட் 5% வந்ததுனால ஐடிசி கிடையாதுங்கிறதுனால all GST suffered on our inputs and input services will add to our cost. So definitely the price will go up. This is a mistake. They should have realized before asking the government. See, இன்னைக்கு வந்து பாத்தீங்கன்னாக்க எல்லாம் ரொம்ப சென்சிட்டிவா நிறைய பேர் பேசிட்டு இருப்பாங்க. சானிடைசர் அதுக்கு போய் ஜிஎஸ்டி போடுறாங்க, மாஸ்க் அதுக்கு போய் ஜிஎஸ்டி போடுறாங்க, அதுக்கெல்லாம் எக்ஸம்ஷன் கொடுக்கணும் அப்படின்னு நிறைய பேர் பேசிட்டு இருப்பாங்க. பட் உள்ள போய் பார்த்தா நமக்கு தான் தெரியும். அந்த திருப்பூர் ரீஜன்ல இருக்கோம் நம்ம சிஇடிபி ப்ராஜெக்ட்ல, அதுக்கு ரேட்டு கம்மியா இருக்கிறதுனால நம்ம எவ்வளவு கஷ்டம் அனுபவிக்கிறோங்கிறது உங்களுக்கு தான் தெரியும். ஸோ அந்த மாதிரி எக்ஸம்ஷன் கொடுக்கறது வந்து இட் இஸ் நாட் ஆல்வேஸ் பெட்டர். வாட் இஃப் என்ன ஜிஎஸ்டிங்கிறது இட் இஸ் எ வேல்யூ ஆடட் டாக்ஸ் அண்ட் அட் எவ்ரி ஸ்டேஜ் இன்புட் டாக்ஸ் கிரெடிட் வில் பி given and finally the burden will be passed on to that ultimate consumer. If exemption is given, ITC cannot be taken. The ITC chain will be broken, so the cost will increase, price will go up. அதுக்காக அந்த செயின்ல இருக்கிற எல்லாரும் இப்ப பிளாட்டுக்கு 5% ரேட் கொடுக்கணுங்கிறதுனால சிமெண்ட்டுக்கு எக்ஸம்ஷன், ஸ்டீலுக்கு எக்ஸம்ஷன், பாத் ஃபிட்டிங்க்கு எக்ஸம்ஷன், எல்லாத்துக்கும் எக்ஸம்ஷன் கொடுக்க முடியாது. அப்பதான் அந்த பிரைஸ் ரிடக்ஷன் வரும். இதை ரியலைஸ் பண்ணாம they have asked for a lesser rate and now the industry is again suffering. Once again they have represented to the government to change or to allow the input tax credit and all. We don't know what will happen finally. Now coming back in the ongoing projects, if somebody is opting for 5%, all are comfortable with Tamil also, no? In between I can mix also, right? Okay. Now, whenever this 5% rate is opted for an ongoing project, we are supposed to calculate and reverse the credit. As I said, there is a complicated formula for that. If required, we will also see that formula on the table, but I will explain the principles behind the formula now. See, the total credit we have to take into account. Whatever transitional credit we have carried forward, plus whatever credit we have taken from 1st July 2017 up to 31/3/2019. Total credit we have to take. And for the sake of simplicity, we will take one small builder who is having only one project. That itself will be highly complicated. Then if there are more and more number of projects and some project 12%, some project 5%, the further complications will increase. Now we will take a simple case of only one project. So we have to take the total credit availed, including the transitional credit. If it is a REP, that is commercial as well as residential. For commercial, ITC is eligible. When it is sold after CC, credit is not eligible. For that, there is a separate mechanism, Rule 42. But prima facie, for commercial area, credit is eligible. So what we have to do, out of the total area, this is a REP, real estate project. Let us assume 50% is commercial area, 50% is a residential area. And he has taken a total ITC of 50 lakhs from 1/7/2017, including transitional credit, 50 lakhs credit has been taken. So out of that, 50 lakh, 25 lakhs is pertaining to commercial portion and 25 lakhs is pertaining to residential portion. This is the first step. So we have to identify how much credit is attributable for the residential area in the project. In our example, 50% is the residential area. So 50% of 50 lakhs, 25 lakhs is eligible. Now, out of that 50% residential area, how much has been sold before 31/3/2019? Let us assume it is a project of say 50,000 square feet. So 25,000 square feet is residential. Out of the 25,000 square feet, 12,500 square feet is sold before 31/3/2019, 50%. So out of the 25 lakhs credit identified, another we have to apply 12,500 by 25,000. So because the remaining 12,500 will be sold only after 1/4/2019. After 1/4/2019, we are going to pay 5%. Credit is not eligible. So first we have to identify from total credit how much is pertaining to the residential area, and out of that, how much is pertaining to the residential area sold before 31/3/2019. The next step is we might have sold 12,500 rupees, but we might not have received the entire sale proceeds. We might have received only partial amount from all the buyers. Wherever the amount has been received before 31/3/2019, we would have already paid GST at the rate of 12%, for which credit is eligible. But wherever the amount will come only after 1/4/2019, we'll be paying only 5%. To that extent, credit is not eligible. So the next step in the formula is whatever we have identified in the earlier step. What is the total value of apartments sold before 31/3/2019? That will be the numerator. That is in the division that will come below. And on the top, it will be how much amount has been received before 31/3/2019. That is the value for which the time of supply is before 31/3/2019. Once we understand these basic principles, then understanding the formula will be very easy. So from the total credit, step by step, we have to arrive at the eligible credit. And this is where the intelligent officers have created. See, at these type of situations, everybody will try to derive maximum benefit. So once on 29/3/2019, all these amendments have come. If somebody is super intelligent, within one day they could have understood all these notifications and started planning. But many of us could not understand this notification even for 10 to 15 days. So the government thought some people may try to misuse and avail ineligible credit. What they can do, they may say, see, as I said, time of supply before 31/3/2019, you are eligible for credit. To enhance the time of supply, what they can do, they can raise a demand on the buyers. The project might not have even started. They will call the buyer. See, there are a lot of changes in GST. If you pay after 1/4/2019, GST will be high. So you pay all the amount. So they will try to realize most of the money before 1/4/2019. That is one possibility people may try to do. Another possibility, we have to take the total credit taken from 1/7/2017. So what people can do, they can purchase all inputs before 31/3. See, imagine all these notifications came only on 29/3. After understanding all the formula within 2 days, before 31/3, somebody may purchase all the input and take all the credit so that they will get maximum credit out of the formula. People may do. So to avoid that, the formula contains various caps. That is, the payment, the billing is linked to the percentage of completion. If the percentage of completion is 40%, let us assume, and billing is 100%, we have sent a demand letter to all the buyers claiming the entire amount, then that entire 100% will not come into the formula. They are allowing only 25%. Percentage of completion 40 plus another 25% is permitted. So the first any builder can try to do, they are plugging it, they are putting a cap. Similarly, the purchase of material is also linked to the percentage of completion. You cannot purchase all the material. Percentage of completion is only 10%, whereas you have purchased all the material. There also they have put a cap in the formula so that nobody can misuse the formula and take maximum amount of credit. So that is how the formula has been framed. And again, please note, all this formula calculation, everything will apply only for ongoing project where 5% is opted. If somebody has opted for the new rate, this formula will not apply. They can continue to take the ITC, and after getting CC, they have to reverse proportionate credit under Rule 42. That is a different issue. And this formula will apply for ongoing project where they have opted for 5%. Now, we will get into another most complex issue of the real estate industry, joint venture. See, the joint venture is very much prevalent under the construction industry. There will be a landowner who has land. He is not a builder, so he will enter into an agreement with the builder. So I have my land, you have the expertise, we both join together, we will construct either a commercial building or a residential apartment, we will construct, and then you take certain apartments, I take certain apartment. So this is a typical joint venture. Let us say a landowner is there, builder is entering into a joint venture agreement Totally 10 apartments are constructed, 5 for landowner, 5 for builder. The builder will sell his 5 apartment. He will market and he will sell. When he sells it, he will sell it along with the UDS. Along with the UDS. The UDS will be transferred by the landowner to the buyer. And the landowner will get 5 flat. He can do whatever he wants. He may retain it, he may stay there, he may rent it out, or he may sell it also. So the landowner can do whatever he wants to do with his 5 apartments. Here, till 2018, we have not come across any issues on the transfer of development right. For the first time, in January 2018, a notification was issued saying that the landowner is transferring development right in favor of the builder. In the case of joint venture apartment, see TDR, transfer of development right, it has got a special meaning under the Town and Country Planning Act and all that. See, what does it mean? Suppose I have a land near to the national highway and government is planning to widen the highway. They want to acquire my land either fully or partially. So they have to pay me compensation. So the government can give monetary compensation or they can give me a TDR certificate. Suppose I have some 5,000 square feet land. Let us assume it is a 2 FSI. I can construct 10,000 square feet. In that 5,000 square feet land, I can construct 10,000 square feet. Once the government takes over my land, I lose my right to construct 10,000 square feet. So they will give me a TDR certificate, which will permit me to construct 10,000 square feet. Suppose if I have another land, 5,000 square feet. Normally I can construct only 10,000 square feet, 2 FSI. But using this TDR, I can go up to 20,000 square feet. Subject to other regulations, I can use. So this TDR is a form of a certificate given by the government. It can be sold in the market also. I don't have any other land. I can't do anything with the TDR. I can sell it to a builder. He will use it. So that is what is TDR, what we have understood so far. But under GST, that notification 4/2018, they said in a joint development agreement, the landowner is transferring the development right. He has the right to develop. That right to develop is transferred to the builder. So the landowner is providing a service to the builder. And in turn, the builder is providing a service to the landowner. That's a construction service. He is constructing apartment and giving it to the land. It's like a barter transaction. I have a laptop, you have a mobile phone. I give the laptop to you and you give the mobile phone to me. So like that, the landowner is giving transfer of development right to the builder, and in turn, the builder is giving certain number of apartments to the landowner. So this is like a barter transaction. Two service activities are involved. For transfer of development right, the service is provided by landowner to promoter, and construction service is provided by promoter to landowner. So both of them are liable to pay their share of taxes, GST. This was notification 4/2018. When the tax was payable, according to the 2018 notification, it was payable at the time when the flats are conveyed to the landowner. So when the flats are handed over to the landowner, at that point of time, both taxes have to be paid. And who has to pay? At that point of time, the landowner has to pay tax for TDR and the builder has to pay for the construction service provided to the landowner. The apartments handed over to the landowner, the builder is liable to charge GST. This is the position. Now, after 1/4/2019, the liability to pay GST on TDR in a joint venture. See, now the next, we have to pause here. Whether TDR is liable to GST or not, that is a different issue. We can always argue this TDR always goes along with the land. Whatever example I gave, I am giving the land to government and TDR certificate is given. So there the TDR is severable from the land. It's a certificate. I can even sell it as a certificate. But in case of a joint venture, the development right and the land both are intertwined. We cannot separate it. So the TDR is also an immovable property. So GST is not liable on TDR. We can argue. In fact, a similar demand was raised under service tax period also. The Chandigarh bench of the tribunal, SISTAT, has held in the case of DLF, transfer of development right is part of the land and service tax cannot be levied. So the same ratio will apply under GST also. We can contest the levy. That's a different issue. But the notification says in a joint venture, there is an element of TDR. So we will proceed and we will deal with the TDR as if it is taxable. But still, the larger issue, whether TDR, GST can be levied or not, that larger issue still remains. Now, after 1/4/2019, the liability to pay GST on TDR is shifted to the promoter. Already the promoter is having so much of burden. He has to procure 80% from registered person. Cement he should not purchase from unregistered people. Apart from that, one more burden. Whatever GST payable on TDR provided by landowner to builder, the builder is liable to pay under RCM. That is the first amendment with effect from 1/4/2019. Next, the exemption. There is an exemption which they have said. There is an example which will make it more clear, but theoretically I will explain. Suppose there are 10 apartments in the complex. In a joint venture, there are 10 apartments. 5 apartments are given to the landowner. The builder is liable to pay GST. He pays GST. Out of the remaining 5 apartments, 3 apartments are sold by the builder before CC. So he will collect 5% GST from the buyers. So out of total 10 apartments, on 8 apartments, GST is paid by the builder. The remaining 2 apartments, which are unsold, no GST will be paid. At the time of sales, no GST will be paid. So here also, when it comes to the question of TDR, wherever GST is paid on sale of the flat, TDR is exempted. In other words, the TDR is payable only for the unsold 2 flats. On a proportionate basis, TDR liability on the builder will be limited only to the unsold apartments. For the apartments which are already sold on payment of GST or the apartments given to the landowner, the TDR liability is exempted. This is one exemption which has been given. Then the rate of tax will be residential 5%. If it is an affordable apartment, 1%, normal apartment 5%. I mean, the rate of GST on TDR, that is also 5%, 1%. But if it is a commercial project joint venture, a commercial building is constructed under joint venture, no exemption. For the entire TDR, RCM will apply. The rate will be 18%. For a commercial building constructed under joint venture model, TDR liability is on the builder, no exemption, 18% payable. A joint venture for a residential apartment, TDR, RCM, payable by RCM by the promoter. The rate of tax will be 5% for normal apartment or 1% for affordable apartment, and it will be payable only for the unsold apartment. So they are trying to create a parity. When you sell it before CC, 5% you will charge on the buyer. If it is after CC, in case of a joint venture, again you pay another 5%. But they are trying to create equity, but this leads to inequity between a joint venture project and a normal project. So buying an apartment from a joint venture project is always, it will be costlier than. And nowadays, lot of problems in joint ventures. At least some 10 to 15 joint venture projects, I am doing the mediation between the landowner and the promoter. Because the landowner says no GST and all I will not give. The promoter demands. So the problem is endless because of all these factors. And one more factor that will add up, I'll tell later. The next question is commercial, it is 18%. The next question is, what is the value of TDR? Value of TDR. There is no monetary value attached. The joint venture agreement will not have any monetary value for TDR. So how to arrive at the value of TDR? The notification says the landowner is giving TDR to the builder. So the value of the TDR will be the value of the buildings received from the promoter. That is what the notification says. Similarly, the value of service provided by builder to landowner. The builder is handing over some apartments to landowner. What is the value of that? For that, the value will be based on the comparable price. at what price the builder has sold an apartment at the nearest point of time. Based on that, we have to take the value. Now, if you see, I said it is like a barter transaction. The landowner is giving TDR, he is getting back apartments. But the landowner is also doing one more thing. He is not only giving TDR to the builder, he is also transferring the UDS land pertaining to builder's apartment. The 5 buyers will also get the UDS. That money will go to the builder. So from the landowner, 2 activities are happening: TDR and transfer of UDS land for the buyer's apartment. In turn, he is getting 5 apartments. So the value of TDR will be the value of apartments given to the landowner minus the value of UDS transferred by the landowner. This second part is not there in the notification. I am trying to interpret it. It should be logical and it should be accepted. Otherwise, it has to be litigated because the landowner is giving 2. He is not only giving TDR, he is also transferring UDS land. Now, this table will make it more clear. Let us assume total 10 apartments are there, 5 for landowner and 5 for promoter. The total land available is 10,000 square feet. Carpet area, each apartment 2,000 square feet. So we are able to construct 20,000 square feet. With the 2 FSI, 20,000 square feet, each apartment 2,000 square feet area. And sale price of one apartment, 5,000 rupees per square feet. The total will come to 1 crore. Out of that 1 crore, what is the value of land? 1/3. 33 lakh, 33,333. The guideline value may be 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs. But as per GST law, the value is 1/3, that is 33.33 lakhs. The remaining 2/3 is the construction value. The remaining 2/3, 66.67 is the construction value. On that, 7.5% will be the GST. 7.5% on 66.67 or 5% on 1 crore. So the GST to be charged on the buyer is 5 lakhs. GST on the buyer 5%, 5 lakhs. I think this will be clear up to now. Now, for the landowner, we are giving 5 apartments. We are liable to pay GST on that. So what is the value we have to adopt? As per that notification, we have to take the nearest time. All these tax for TDR and apartment to landowner, when it is payable at the time of getting CC. At the time of getting CC. Prior to 1/4/2019, it was at the time of handing over the apartment. But after 1/4/2019, GST on TDR as well as GST on landowner flat is payable at the time of getting CC. At the time of getting CC, to the nearest point of time, the sale price is 5,000 per square feet, 1 crore. Out of that, the construction value is 66.67. So we have to adopt 66.67 for one flat given to the landowner. So the value of one flat given to the landowner is 66.67. Now the biggest question is rate of GST. Can we apply 5% here? No. That is my view. Some people still feel that we can adopt, but I'll tell you the reason also. That 5% rate comes with a condition that the value should include the value of the land also. There should be a land transfer also. But between the promoter and landowner, there is no land transfer. The land already belongs to the landowner. So the role of the builder is only that of a contractor. He puts his material, he puts his labor. No land is given by promoter to landowner. So that particular entry of 5% cannot be applied. So it will be 18%. This is where all joint ventures are there in big problem now. So which landowner will agree to pay 18% GST suddenly? But that is the position now. Some people argue that we can charge 5%, but I'm not agreeable to that. Anyway, I'm not final authority on that. So we have to, there will be more litigation on that. Finally, it will be settled. So as of now, in my view, for the landowner flat, we have to take the comparable price, and at the rate of 18%, if you put, see, when the flat is sold, the GST is 5 lakhs. But for the flat given to the landowner, the GST comes 12 lakhs. What he will do? How can he sell subsequently? And the notification says the landowner can take the credit. See the anomaly. When the builder will pay the GST? Only when completion certificate is given. Only when completion certificate is given, then only he will pay GST collected from the landowner. And the landowner, if the landowner has already sold the flat, he is already liable to pay GST. At the time, he will not get any ITC at all. The ITC he will get only at the time of completion. Suppose the landowner has not sold it, he is selling it after CC, then there is no GST. He cannot take ITC. So even though the notification says the landowner can take ITC, practically it becomes impossible for the landowner to take ITC. So now the landowner plus should pay for each flat 12 lakhs GST to the builder, and then he has to sell it. Very, very unviable. Now, what is the total value of UDS transferred by the landowner to the promoter or the promoter's buyer? For one flat, the UDS value is 33.33. For 5 flats, the value is 1.66, 1.67, column 12, row 12. Now, the total value of flats received by the landowner. One flat value 66.67 into 5 flats. The total value of flats received by the landowner 11, serial number 11. That is 333, 33, 335. This is what the value of apartments received by the landowner. In turn, the landowner has given UDS for 5 flats to the promoter. What is that value? 5 into 33.33, that is 1.166, 66, 665, serial number 12. If you reduce that, the remaining value will be the value of TDR. The remaining value will be the value of TDR. Now let us assume out of the 5 flats, builder, he has sold 4 flats. For the 5 flats given to the landowner, the builder will pay GST. For the 4 flats sold by the builder before CC, he will pay GST. So totally, out of 10 flats, 9 flats GST will be paid. Only for 1 flat, unsold flat, TDR is payable. So what is the value of TDR? 166, serial number 13. On that, the total GST liability at the rate of 5% will come a particular amount. That is for 10 flat. But he is liable to pay only for 1 flat. So the builder has to pay 83,333 as GST on TDR under RCM. And this is how the joint venture liabilities have to be arrived at. So valuation of the service provided by promoter to landowner, what is the rate of GST to be adopted, valuation of the TDR transferred by landowner to promoter, and how much GST is payable on TDR value. Out of that, how much is exempted and how much is payable. So these are all the various issues involved in case of real estate project as far as the GST levy is concerned. 1 minute. Now, there can be an area sharing model which we have discussed so far, and any joint venture can be revenue sharing also. So nowadays revenue sharing has become more popular because of all these complications. So the landowner may say, I don't want this 5 flat. You sell all the 10 flat. You give me the sale proceed of 5 flats, whatever amount you are getting, or whenever you are selling an apartment, give me 50%. Whenever you effect any sale, you give 50%, or these flats you sell and give me the revenue sharing. So under the revenue sharing model, no apartments are handed over by builder to landowner. No apartments are constructed by the builder for the landowner. So there will be no GST liability between promoter to landowner. But TDR is there. TDR is transferred and TDR valuation has to be done based on the total amount received by the landowner. Same formula we have to adopt. And RCM will apply. And wherever the builder has sold the apartment on payment of GST, TDR is exempted. On the remaining apartments, TDR, RCM will apply. So this is about the revenue sharing model. I think with that, I'm covering most of the issues related to the real estate sector. We still have a lot of time. If you want to see that particular formula for reversal of credit, we can see that formula. Or the remaining time, maybe sometime I will have to address that recent Gujarat High Court judgment. Mr. Balaji has told me to address that also. And the issue of this CETP also I will cover. But before that, whatever we have discussed so far under the real estate, if you have any further questions on that, We can interact maybe for another 10 to 15 minutes. Thereafter, we can move to the other issues. Is that fine?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I
Yes, sir.
request members to ask questions. I think it's a very complicated topic. Still, there are unresolved issues are there. One question I can ask is, suppose in a completed contract, sir, completed contract that was flats are completed, but the landowner received amount in rupees instead of getting flats. He received amount, sir. Actually, that agreement was entered before GST period. That was entered in 2014. But he received, he is receiving these amounts only now, sir. Whether and only now when the promoter is selling the flats. The promoter is selling the flats only now, sir, as a completed project. And landowner is also receiving amounts. Whether is there any RCM or any GST liability on
Yes.
the landowner or on the promoter, sir?
Yes, I will explain. See, for joint venture, the date of joint venture agreement is immaterial. Whether the joint venture agreement was during service tax period or before 1/4/2019 or after before 1/4 or after 1/4, we have to see. There is a difference. But even under the service tax law, these joint ventures are liable to service tax. There also, the time at which tax is payable was notified as at the time when the flats are conveyed to the landowner. I will come to this example of revenue sharing little later. I will just explain it. So it was an agreement entered during service tax period, but till 30th June 2017, the flats were not handed over to the landowner. So there is no service tax liability. So after GST, when the flats are going to be handed over to the landowner, at that point of time only, the time of supply will arise. So it will be a GST transaction. Even though it is a joint venture entered prior to 1/7/2017, when the flats are handed over after 1/7/2017, then GST will apply. This is the position. Now coming to this example, where no flats are given to the landowner, only amount is given. Here, no service is provided by the promoter to the landowner. He is not giving any constructed apartment to the landowner. So the promoter need not collect any GST from the landowner. We have to see the joint venture agreement also. It should be a clear revenue sharing model. If it is a clear revenue sharing model, the builder is not liable to collect any GST from the landowner. This is between promoter and landowner. And you said none of the apartments are sold. Now only he is going to sell, and completion certificate has also come. So when the flats are sold after getting the completion certificate, he is not supposed to charge any GST from the buyers also. So between promoter and landowner, no GST. Between promoter and buyer also, there is no GST. But this will involve TDR. There is an element of TDR in that, and all apartments are sold after CC only without GST. So no exemption for TDR. For all the flat, the TDR value has to be arrived at the rate of 5%. The builder is liable to pay GST on TDR. He cannot take ITC also, because all flats are sold after completion and ITC is not eligible. So in this example given by you, between builder and landowner, no GST. Between builder and buyer, no GST. But the builder has to pay GST on TDR under RCM. Hope it is clear. Is it clear, sir? Yes. You can also send your questions in the chat box also. Now I have closed the PowerPoint. Anybody else wants to raise any questions on whatever we have discussed? Or shall I move on to the other issues?
Sir, a small basic question, sir, actually.
Yes, sir.
Actually, 2/3 abatement is given for the plant value, no? while calculating that GST or something, the two-third abatement is portion is given. Suppose the real market value is more than that thumb rule, then what will be the position of the that is sellers?
Yes. As per the notification, they have fixed 1/3 uniform, whether it is more or whether it is less. Wherever it is less than 1/3, we don't have a problem. We are happy. 1/3 value will go. But wherever the land value is more than 1/3, if on 2/3, if GST is demanded, then it amounts to levying a tax on land which is not permissible. But as the notification stand today, only 1/3 deduction is available. But if somebody wants to challenge the notification, wherever the value is more than 1/3, you are not all giving me the deduction of actual value. You are giving only part of it as 1/3. So in other words, you are encroaching upon the land value and levying GST on the land value. So that is the challenge which we have to raise it by filing a writ petition. We have to challenge the notification. But as per the present notifications, only 1/3 deduction is permissible. We cannot straight away take, if the value is 50%, I will take 50% and pay. Definitely the department will not accept, they will agitate. We have to challenge the particular condition itself. We have to challenge the particular condition itself. Unless that is struck down by a High Court or Supreme Court, as per the notification, only 1/3 is permissible.
Even though I'm able to substantiate the authenticity of that value, everything, then I'm not able to get that benefit.
Okay. Yes. Again, if you are claiming that it is more than 50%, by market value, it may be more than 50%. But we have to go by the guideline value fixed by the government. That alone. If the guideline value itself is more than 50%, then you have a case. But we have to challenge the particular notification. Notification is very clear. It is only 1/3.
Thank you. Other members, please can.
Recently, some controversies are going on regarding land development, sir. Only land.
Yes. I will explain that. See, there are a lot of things called plot development. Land, only land will be developed and sold. And we have one advance ruling under the GST in every state. And maybe instead of it is called Advance Ruling Authority, AAA. And maybe we can call it as an adverse ruling authority instead of calling it as an advance ruling authority, because most of the decisions given by the advance ruling authority are in favor of revenue only. There are some good decisions where they have analyzed and given, but by and large, my request to all the people is, it is not advisable to go before the advance ruling authority. I'm not blaming the authorities. The reason is the GST law is just evolving. It is just 3 years old, and it is going to be very, very difficult for everybody to understand and interpret it. Central excise was there from 1944. Still we had litigation. Service tax is there from 1994. Income tax is there from 1860. Still we have litigation. But how can we expect the GST to be so simple? So when the law is so complex and so new, when they put a comparatively lesser grade of officers like a joint commissioner in an authority, advance ruling authority, definitely they don't want to take any chance. Everywhere they go by the revenue only. So like that, some advance rulings have come, but we have to approach the issue without looking into the advance ruling decision, because advance ruling is binding only on that particular assessee. No doubt, our officer will take clue of it and they will also proceed against us. But advance ruling is not directly binding. See, now I am a landowner. I have a large variety of land, quantity of land. I am developing it by myself. After developing it, and site formation, road laying, water line, everything I am developing, and finally I am getting approval and I am doing the plotting and selling the plot. So when I sell the plot, there will be a sale deed for the entire value. If there is a sale deed for the entire value, it is sale of land. There cannot be any levy of GST. But unfortunately, in that advance ruling, they have said GST is payable, which is not correct. In this model, where I am the landowner, I develop the land, I sell the land by sale deed. I don't enter into any development agreement with my buyer. If I enter into a development agreement, land value separate and development value separate, then GST is payable. The same, this 1/3 reduction and all will apply, because plot development is also treated as a real estate project under RERA provisions. So GST will apply if it is a development model. But if sale deed model, entire value, it is only a sale deed, then GST should not apply. But wherever the contractor I am appointing for doing the work, they are liable to pay GST and they will collect it from me. But between me and my buyer, there will be no GST liability. This is one model. And even in the land development also, there can be a joint venture. There may be a landowner and there may be a developer. There GST will apply. So there the developer is providing the development service to the landowner. And what is the money he is getting? He will get the revenue share. So whatever revenue share he is getting in this particular project, on that he is liable to pay GST towards development of the land. Again, I am making it myself very clear. In case of land development undertaken under joint development model, the developer is liable to pay GST on his revenue share. But the landowner is not entering into any joint development agreement. He only engages a contractor to develop. The contractor is liable to charge GST. But when the land is sold to the buyer through a sale deed, no GST. But if the land is sold to the buyer by two documents, one for sale of land and one for development agreement, then GST will apply. This is the position as far as plot developments are concerned.
Any questions, members? Sir, chartல questions இருக்குன்னு நினைக்கிறேங்க. Chartல.
இல்லையே சார். 1 minute.
Members, ஏதாவது questions இருந்தா கேட்கலாம்.
Now, shall we discuss?
Yeah, regarding that TTP, sir, TTP.
Yeah. So Tirupur area, the most nowadays the biggest problem is the common effluent treatment plant. They are collecting the effluent from member units and they are treating it and giving back to that particular unit. So for that, what is the rate of GST applicable? That is the biggest question now which is going on. So that issue, in fact, yes, sir. We are paying at the rate of, earlier we were paying at 12%, right, sir, in the initial period?
Earlier there was a confusion whether it is 18% or 5%. Then we took some people took a stand of 5%. Then afterwards they converted it into 12%, sir.
Okay. So now the question is between, in the initial period it was 18%. Then for various waste treatment activities, the rate was reduced to 12%. And we have been paying because our activity, it is not the treatment and disposal of the waste. This is water we are receiving, treating it and giving back again to the textile unit, and they are using it in the process. So it is like a job work activity done for a textile unit. So the rate of duty has to be 5%. So that dispute is going on. So many show cause notices have been issued and the people are being forced to pay that amount also. And in fact, I understand the association of CETP, they have also taken it very seriously. Yesterday, I heard one the association president speaking to the members on video was circulated. There, they have represented the issue to the finance minister also for the rate reduction to bringing it at 5%. And we also have that accumulated credit problem. We also have that because many people are at the present paying 5%. Your inputs and input services are at the higher rate. So there is an accumulation of credit which you are not able to use. So that is also one problem. And that wherever 5% is being paid, the department is demanding 18% for the initial period and subsequently 12% for the remaining period. That demand is also pending. So even if you file a refund claim for inverted rate structure, that will not be finalized because according to the department, it is not 5%. They are going to demand 12% or 18% for the respective period. So the refund also will be get stuck. Immediately they will not sanction. So here there has to be, anyway, individual notices are being issued. Every individual has to defend themselves. They have to file their reply. They have to undergo the process. That is the one part of it, legally handling it. On the other hand, it should also be represented before the government, which the association is already doing, I believe. And they want to either get 5% rate specifically or a clarification in the form of a circular. Serious steps are being taken and they have met the FM also, I was told. And once the situation improves and the travel facility and all improves, they are going to meet the finance minister also, and they are making efforts in that direction. So now this issue is there. We have to deal with it both legally as well as through the GST Council and finance minister. And coming to that inverted rate refund, there is a connected development. See, this inverted rate refund, suppose I'm a manufacturer, I manufacture a product, that product attracts 12% GST, but my raw material attracts 18%, my input services attract 18%. So because of that, there is accumulation of credit. My value addition is not so huge to accommodate the credit entitlement, so there is accumulation of credit. GST law provides refund of the accumulated credit on account of inverted rate structure. Section 54 gives refund as far as the inverted rate structure. See, now I gave the example. My product, it attracts 12%. I have 10 raw material. Out of that, one raw material attracts 18%. Still, I am eligible for the refund. So the refund quantum will be determined on a proportionate basis. How much credit is attributable for this particular product? If I am manufacturing so many other products, it will be on a proportionate basis. Now, what they have done, I am taking input credit. I am taking credit on inputs, that is raw material. I am taking credit on input services, that credit also I am taking. Once I am having an inverted rate structure, I may be a service provider or I may be a goods supplier. My output tax rate is lesser than the input rate. Even one input, no problem. Even if one of the input is having a rate higher than my outward supply rate, I am eligible for inverted rate refund. So in that rule, in 2018, they made a retrospective amendment saying that the refund will be entitled only for the input, the GST paid on input alone and not input services. They amended the rule 89.5 with a retrospective effect from 1/7/2017. Till 2018, people were claiming for both input as well as input services. All those recovery action has been taken by the department based on the retrospective amendment. See, under GST law, if I remember somewhere in 2011, even the Prime Minister of our country, this retrospective legislation, especially in indirect taxes, is very bad. We think that rate of tax is 5%, we are eligible for refund, we plan, we do, competition is there, we fix our price, and after 2 years, retrospectively, if you are going to recover the refund, or retrospectively, if you are saying that I am liable to pay more tax, it is very difficult. It is, am I audible, sir? I'm getting a message. Yes, yes. So, this retrospective amendment is very, very bad, but still, lot of retrospective amendments have been silently done under GST law, whether it is transitional credit or this inverted rate of refund. Government is silently doing lot of retrospective amendment. Here also they amended the rule saying that only for input that credit refund will be eligible. And Gujarat High Court, ever since GST was introduced, Gujarat High Court and Delhi High Courts are giving lot of decisions which are very, very helpful for the industry. Very good decisions, whether it is TRAN credit or any other issues. But unfortunately, in South, we are not able to get such decisions very frequently. We also used to get, but the landmark judgments are being given from Gujarat and Delhi High Courts. And recently, some 2 days before, this particular rule 89.5A has been struck down by the Gujarat High Court. They said when your act allows refund of input tax credit, the act section 54 doesn't say whether it is for input or input service. It says input tax credit. Input tax credit means everything. Input services, or next step we can claim even for capital goods also. That is the next question. But now, as far as restricting the credit only for input, that is ultra vires the act. So they have struck down the rule. Now, in all the cases wherever favorable orders have been given, the government has immediately filed appeals in Supreme Court. In some of the cases, Supreme Court has also stayed those decisions also. So here also, whether they are going to accept it or they are going to file an appeal, we don't know. Or they may amend section 54 again with the retrospective effect also, we don't know. But as of now, this GST Gujarat High Court judgment has struck down that particular rule. And wherever we are claiming inverted rate refund for our assessee, for our clients, if we have claimed only for inputs, we can file a supplementary claim for input services also. I don't know whether the portal will allow file a second refund claim for the same period, because nowadays more than law, portal is more important. If the portal doesn't allow something, even though the law allows, we can't do anything. Even the government cannot do anything. They cannot change the portal. They are only amending the law. Take, for example, Section 50 interest, whether it is net on gross. Even if I want to pay part of the tax, my liability is 10 lakhs. I'm having only 5 lakhs money on hand. I want to pay it. The law doesn't say I should not file, but the portal does not allow me to file. The GSTN portal, I can file my GSTR 3B only if I pay the entire tax liability. But law doesn't say so. So what the government should have done, they should have amended the portal and allowed me to file the return with partial liability, which they are not able to do. They amended the law. So who is supreme? Whether Parliament is supreme or GST network is supreme, we don't know. So because the portal does not allow it, they amended Section 50 and said that interest is payable only on the net liability. Again, this they have not made it retrospectively. Wherever they want to recover the money, they are doing it with the retrospective effect. This is the mistake of the portal. This they should have done it with the retrospective effect, but they have not given any retrospective effect. They have done it only prospectively. So again, coming back to inverted rate refund, whether the portal will allow us to file one more refund claim for the same period, we don't know. At least manually we have to file. The next question is, just because Gujarat High Court has given, automatically whether all our refunds will be sanctioned, may not be. The department may say that Gujarat High Court judgment is binding only on Gujarat. Or they may even say, this is a writ petition. Only the petitioner in that case will get the benefit, not all the parties. So these are all the various stands which the government may take. But once a rule is struck down, this is not a decision given on the facts and circumstances of the case. The judgment is not based on any peculiar facts of that particular petitioner. The court has struck down the rule itself. So even though it is only a judgment of Gujarat High Court, it has to apply uniformly throughout the country. But we know at local levels, the department may not accept. Again, they may say it will apply only in Gujarat and all. But strictly speaking, legally, it should apply here also. But wherever it is rejected, we should also take it up in appeal to the court and try to get the refund. So these are some recent developments which have happened, which are very relevant, especially for Tirupur, which I thought I'll share with you. Any other questions, sir? Not necessarily on real estate or any other aspects? There is a civil GST liability on civil engineer for construction of schools and hospitals. There is no special, if it is for government, if the school or hospital is constructed by a government or a local authority or a government authority or government entity. Please note my words: government, local authority, government authority, government entity. All these are defined words. So then the rate of GST will be 12%. The rate of GST applicable will be 12%. In all other cases, it will be 18%. In all other cases, it will be 18%. If it is a pure service, it will be 18. That 12% is for works contract. If it is with material, if it is a pure service activity, no exemption, no lesser rate, it will be 18% uniform.
Sir, for borewell, sir, borewells க்கு வந்து 12% 18% sir.
Borewell
government borewell.
தனியா அது தனியா
25% 12% அப்படின்ற மாதிரி ஒரு more than 20% ஒரு அந்த கிளாரிஃபிகேஷன்.
அதாவது கவர்மெண்ட் வந்து இந்த ட்ரிங்கிங் வாட்டர் பர்பஸ்க்காக பண்ணாங்கன்னா, there is one entry, services done for the government in the, under the municipal function 243W 243H. அந்த முனிசிபல் ஃபங்க்ஷன் ஒரு இரிகேஷன் பர்பஸுக்காகவோ இல்ல ஒரு ட்ரிங்கிங் வாட்டர் பர்பஸுக்காகவோ அந்த 243W 243H ரெண்டு ஆர்டிகல் இருக்கு கான்ஸ்டிடியூஷன்ல, அதுல கவர் ஆன ஆக்டிவிட்டிஸ் பண்ணாக்க இட் வில் பி 12%. பட் ஒரு ஃபார்மர் இருக்காரு, அவருடைய பர்பஸ்க்காக அவர் ஒரு போர்வெல் போடுறாரு, இல்ல ஒரு ட்ரிங்கிங் வாட்டர் பர்பஸ்க்காக நான் வீட்டுல ஒரு போர்வெல் போடுறேன் அப்படின்னா அதுக்கெல்லாம் இட் வில் பி 18% only. If it is done for government or an activity covered under the municipal function, then it will be 12%.
So regarding Gujarat, latest Gujarat decision, just already most of the dying companies have already got refund for earlier period. So based on Gujarat decision, whether they can make the request, whether it is going to be allowed or not, that is different issue as rightly told. But anyway, whether the associate can file another claim for the refund for the old period based on the Gujarat.
Definitely.
Or they have to keep quiet because already because will the department say that no, already your assessment is completed, we have already given the refund, so you are not eligible for that. Even though Gujarat High Court is in favor of you, for old refund will not be allowed, like they can tell.
See, as I said, for a particular period, ஒரு ரீஃபண்ட் கிளைம் தான் ஃபைல் பண்ணணும் அப்படின்லாம் லா சொல்லல. ஏதாவது விட்டு போயிருந்ததுன்னா இன்னொரு கிளைம் தாராளமா ஃபைல் பண்ணலாம். அதனால அந்த டைம் லிமிட்டும் இன்னைக்கு பாத்தீங்கன்னா நிறைய எக்ஸ்டெண்ட் ஆயிருக்கு. பிகாஸ் ஆஃப் திஸ் கோவிட் சிச்சுவேஷன் ஆல் டைம் லிமிட்ஸ் ஆர் ஆல்சோ எக்ஸ்டெண்டட். ஸோ அதனால வேறவர் இட் இஸ் வித்தின் த 2 year பீரியட் டெஃபினட்டா இன்னொரு அடிஷனல் கிளைம் போடணும். நான் சொன்ன மாதிரி போர்ட்டல் மேபி அலோவ் பண்ணாம இருக்கலாம். ஒன்ஸ் ஒரு பீரியடுக்கு ஒரு ரீஃபண்ட் கிளைம் ஃபைல் பண்ணியாச்சுன்னா சேம் பீரியடுக்கு போர்ட்டல்ல இன்னொரு கிளைம் பண்ண முடியாதா இருக்கலாம். பட் அட்லீஸ்ட் அந்த சுச்சுவேஷன்ல மேனுவலாவது ஒரு ரீஃபண்ட் கிளைமை கண்டிப்பா நம்ம போட்டு வைப்போம். லெட் தம் ரிஜெக்ட் இட். அதுக்கப்புறம் நம்ம அப்பீல் போறதா போகலையாங்கிறது வந்து we can take a call later. But let everybody file a claim for the old period also, wherever it is within the 2 year time limit.
Sir, but officers are not rejecting, sir. They are still keeping it as if it is not received. Even we sent through registered post, sir. போனாலும் ரிஜெக்டும் பண்ண மாட்டாங்கறாங்க, ரிப்ளையும் பண்ண மாட்டாங்கறாங்க.
That is how it is. Law is different, practice is different. There is lot of difference between law and practice. அதான் ரிஜிஸ்டர் போஸ்ட்ல ஃபைல் பண்ணிட்டு அக்னாலஜ்மெண்ட்டை வச்சுக்குவோம். மேபி ஒரு 1 year வரைக்கும் ஒரு ரீசனபிள் பீரியட் அவங்க ஆக்ஷனே எடுக்கல அப்படியே வச்சுட்டு இருந்தாங்கன்னாக்க ஒரு 2-3 ரிமைண்டர் கொடுப்போம். அதுக்கு மேலே ஆக்ஷன் எடுக்கலன்னா we have to file a writ petition in the High Court seeking for a direction.
Or else we can go for RTA. We can file a petition under RTI that such as I said, I have sent.
What is the actual action taken?